3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6,
Hello,
7
my name is
o'clock,
Bill
8
Haley,
o'clock, rock.
and this is for Haley 2024, the Movement's Government Reform Ideas. This video is going to be an overview of the U.S. Constitution proposed amendment to create the Haley 2024 reforms, the main reform being a CRA, Competitive Regulatory Agency. So this one's planned on being about 15 to 20 minute video. I'm going to have about a 7-minute video out there, then much longer videos. Then my intention is to have about a couple dozen videos going into different aspects of this proposed constitutional amendment, creating the Haley 2024 reforms. So let's go over the overview. This is a preamble. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. You might be able to read along with me if you have a TV big enough. Or you can follow along on my website easy enough. We, the American people, established with this constitutional amendment the CRA social contract in the form of the CRA structure as the rules for the land in which we citizens jointly have federal, state, and local governmental ownership, sovereignty. In order to establish the rule of law, repel foreign threats, establish safe havens for the world's oppressed people, tolerate the freedom of others, protect individual liberty, care for substantial unmet needs, recognize self-ownership, establish citizen obligations, permit freedom of contract, acknowledge individual property ownership, and allow for self, family, and competitive governance in a system of diversified authorities. So there's a lot to that. Each one of those words and phrases will be enveloped or be part of the part of this Constitution. So that tells us where we're going. We're going to go over every aspect of this. We have 15 sections. Then we have 30 sectors within all of this. So it's pretty significant change of the foundations of government. First of all, you need to know that we're going to split government power into 30 sectors. We're going to get rid of government welfare altogether, go to a charity system, federal, state, and local levels. When I say we separate into 30 sectors, I'm talking about top level representative oversight, elected oversight per sector. So there's nobody that's in charge of, let's say, police and family law, and insurance law, and military, and prisons. All those are going to be separated out. Let's go over the 30 real quick. We got 5 in the charity system. That include family law and religion. Again, we don't regulate religion, and that's there for fighting for religious freedom and organizational purposes. Charity, the funding mechanism for charity, and the caseworkers, the assessor organizations. Family law. 5 in the foreign protection. So the top diplomat, the president, is going to be a different person than the top commander-in-chief, the president. We could probably have different names for him. But you're going to see that we're separating powers significantly more than what we currently have. We say we have separation of powers by having legislative, executive, and judicial. We're going to continue with that. But we're separating all powers of government into 30. So the top commander-in-chief is different than the top diplomat, the total elected leader for those. 2 different people. Then you have different people for the oversight, which is the military authorization agency. Military capability system. It's a way of having free enterprise military. Their product is military capabilities to America. So they can't just use their services and their abilities wherever. 5 in the violent crime mitigation system. Again, free enterprise courts, police, prisons. All with significant oversight through the law enforcement authorization. If you cannot get 70% of the people or the representatives of a separate representative body of the people to give that person authorization to have a badge to be a prosecutor, a judge, a police officer, a prison guard, then they don't get to be that. To hold governmental power of those offices, you have to be given that with a 70% authorization. 70% of the representatives. And if you're in there and you're messing up, 40% can take that authorization back. So there's a lot to it. We got 15 different, 15 more separations of governmental power. 2 in the healthcare, 2 in the financial industry, insurance, food, education, manufacturing, human resources, and sales. Identity is going to be a huge sector. So many things we're going to be able to put into the identity sector, and so many things that they're going to be able to do to protect people's interests. It's a huge one. Environmental, work safety, transportation. Again, transportation, total free enterprise roads. To go along with total free enterprise police and total free enterprise education, total free enterprise helping the poor, charities and the like. No more government monopoly on those. Media and communication, land and water. A lot of competitive governance there. So, within each sector, within each of one of those sectors you just saw there, and everyone's significantly different, you're going to be able to choose. And your neighbor's going to be able to choose. And the guy 10 streets down, they're going to be able to choose every entity. Business entity, individual, citizen, every organization, everybody chooses who is going to govern them, who's going to regulate them, who's going to represent them. A CRA is representative, governing, and regulatory. A CRA has executive, legislative, and judicial powers. Those we'll deal with the bylaws in a little bit. On the other side, the rating system is going to give high quality information and create rating floors. 2 huge things that's going to stop so much regulation, monopoly regulations at the sector board level. Sector board level is where all the CRAs sends representatives up to that one, and they do monopoly regulations. Not much is going to be there. Not in about 25 of the sectors. A couple sectors there will be. We'll get into that. So let's keep on going. Section 1 is going to be about citizenship. Who's a citizen, who's not a citizen, and we'll have a separate video on that. I'll get into that more on the longer videos and the other videos. The general laws, every constitution needs this general laws. Bylaws are going to be where the executive power lies versus judicial versus legislative powers, and voting, and just a lot of different things going to go into bylaws, and who has authority to make those. We're going to deal with federal, state, and local. All this constitution will be a federal constitution, state constitution, and local constitution. So it does all 3 levels. Original authority, that one's going to really teach people where the authority lies to create a constitution. And then where each set of responsibilities and authorities lie. Does it lie at the state level, local level, the federal level, with the person, with the CRA, competitive regulatory agency? Does it lie with the sector board or the parent sector board? Where does that lie? There's a lot to get into on that. The supermajority is going to be so huge. You need 70% to do anything at the monopoly representative level to cross everything. Now, the governing still happens at the CRA level, but the regulation happens at the sector board level for very few things that needs to be done, and that needs to have a 70% majority. And only with the words, only with negative externalities. You can only go up to that sector board level with significant negative externalities that could not be taken care of by rating floors. And rating floors are going to be able to take care of most of it. Actually, just a rating system is going to take care of most of it. Rating floors is another step to make sure you don't need monopoly regulations. And then we go to a sector board regulation. We'll get into that later. We're going to run out of time on this one. 40% can repeal any monopoly regulation at the sector board level. So you see that this is going to create a much smaller government at the monopoly regulatory monopoly governance level. Now you can have as much governance as you want at your chosen CRA. If you want a little bit like a libertarian, you can go with a CRA that's more libertarian minded. If you want a much higher set of regulations, which some might be good, you might choose one that has much more governance in it. Much more taxes, much more control, much more benefits, whatever you want to go to. So you choose how you want to be governed. But the 40% and the 70%, that's at the sector board level. Sector board level is where all the CRAs send representatives up there, and when something cannot be done adequately at the CRA level, it goes to the sector board level. Okay, the parent sector board level, we'll get into that on other videos, but they're mostly just constitutional, making sure the whole structure works. The sector board, on the most sectors, they're just going to be oversight, making sure their sector works. And a few things to make regulations to go across the board. Hopefully not too much. But some sectors are going to be original authority at the sector board level, such as the commander-in-chief, the police chief. Even the police chief won't have too much at the sector board level. But the oversight, societal oversight roles, law enforcement authorization, the military authorization, that has to be sector board level. And any military personnel, any police officer, they need 70% vote to have their badge, to have their authority. Anybody with inherent government power needs a 70% vote of representatives of 70% of the people. And after they have it, let's say they start messing up, 40% of the people or the representatives can take that, repeal that authorization, take away their badge, take away their authorization to be in the military or to hold any type of government power, prison guard, a judge, a prosecutor. Let's go on. At the competitive regulatory agencies, that's the base of this whole reform. This is where the governing happens. Section 9 right here is where it's all at. That is where 90% of the governing happens. You get governed by your organization. Your neighbor gets governed by their organization. And only in a very small amount will competitive regulatory agencies have to abide by the sector board telling them what to do. Only when it's absolutely necessary. And there's a lot of ways, so not too much will go there. I talked about the rating system, the rating floors, and the like. So most governing will happen here. And even when the sector board does tell them what to do, it gets governed through CRAs. So this parent sector board defines the parameters and responsibilities of all and authorities of all the sectors. So that's the main thing that the parent sector board does. And they make sure and they enforce that. They can never regulate within one of the sectors, but they say what sector has a certain amount of certain responsibility. And they can do the parent sector board rating system. They'll deal with a lot of fraud. A whole bunch of rating systems will deal with fraud and negative externalities. So there's several ways to deal with negative externalities. Anything that you think that, oh, that won't work because of, no, the rating system will take care of most of it. Sector boards will be able to control some of it, but most of it, because most people want to be governed by a good, responsible, professional governance, they're going to pick the ones that do it right. The few people who might want to pick the ones that are not doing it good, they're going to be limited by rating floors and the like. There's a lot of ways to be limited from doing wrong. I'm sorry. A CRA sector board governs all the people within the governed area. So that's monopoly government. But it goes through the CRAs. And that's very minimized to very specific and precise areas of responsibilities. The sector board must govern through a CRA. So let's talk about that. Every entity within the governed area must select and become a member of a CRA. So you have to become a member of a local, state, and federal CRA in all 30 sectors, and quite frankly, RAs. It's 180 different agencies you have to become a member of. Seems like a lot. There's ways to make it easy. There's a lot of structure I have a lot of organizations are going to be able to quickly handle all that for you. The Heritage Foundation or the Brookings Institute, Heritage on the more on the conservative right, Brookings Institute on the liberal left. They will group a lot of these CRAs together, handle a lot of stuff for you. And the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, the Democrat Party, the Libertarian, the I think I said that twice, the Green Parties and the like, they'll organize a lot of this stuff for you and do some governance, or at least hire different private sector organizations to do the governing functions for you. A CRA only governs its members. One of the most important slides here. They only govern their members. So you pick the governing agency that you want to govern you. You have to be governed, but you pick it. All laws, regulations, and bureaucracies and governing occurs within CRAs. So everything has to be through a CRA. Everything is within the jurisdiction of one of the 30 CRAs or sectors. So the rating system, we'll get into that more on the longer video. Taxation and debt. Taxation is a big one. Everything that we're currently paying for right now through current government still needs to be paid for, but it'll be a lot more productive. Some things won't need to be paid for. A lot of it will be. We go into all that. That's a whole nother video. I'll go into that on the longer videos, by the way. Debt, how we do a transition from current ownership to the private ownership. Current government ownership to the private ownership. Because we take all military, all police, all education. We take it from government to private sector. How do we do that? That deals with some debt. The purpose of the rating system is to give high quality information, evaluate, and rate CRA regulations and the real results. So that high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives are going to be huge. The rating system may authorize precise and strictly defined areas of regulations to their sector's CRA sector board. So if a rating system cannot handle a negative externality by giving it low ratings and letting the people know, or in doing rating floors, those things will handle 95% of all the negative externalities. But if it cannot handle it, if it's just too stubborn and the negative externalities are still happening, they can shove it up to the monopoly sector board level, and then the sector board can say, here's a set of regulations you cannot violate, and all the CRAs have to govern and make sure you're not polluting or you're not doing something that's causing a negative externality. So, all CRAs set their own membership fees. Highly important. That's part of governing, part of the competitive. Who's going to govern you is going to be partly going to be decided by how much you're charging. You're going to get what you pay for. If they charge a little bit, I don't want to be taxed too much. Well, their governing might not be too good because you didn't pay that many fees. But if you pay a lot, they might be able to give you a lot of benefits. Pay a little benefits. Governing is important. But the competitive nature of it is going to make it a lot better. Because there's going to be competition, you could choose and switch CRAs. Pockets of freedom. It's a big foreign policy and immigration deal. I don't have time on this video to deal with that, but I'll deal with that in another video. States partial acceptance per sector. We want this to pass. And this is just a way to allow some states to say, hey, I want to keep the current system for some sectors, police or the environment or whatever. We want it to stay the same. Labor law, banking laws, insurance laws. We want to keep our hand in it, in the current system. It's not the best way, but we want this whole system to pass. So this is one of the ways we allow states to buy on with the system, but then not accept all of it all at once. The separation of responsibilities into 30 sectors. Top level elected leadership per sector. These are at the sector board level. But again, most of the authorities at the CRA level. But every sector has its CRAs. Got the charities. I already went through a lot of these, so we're going through them again. I'm not sure why I have the separate slides there. So again, if you don't see it, it will fall into one of the 30 sectors. The rating floor is a level the ratings cannot go below. You don't know about the ratings so much yet, but it's going to help with negative externalities and regulations allowing too much pollution or too much. There's a lot of negative externalities that can happen. This will help. Members of a CRA vote on the leadership and representation of their CRAs in all three branches. You only vote within your CRA. Highly important to know. So if you want to be a socialist, you still can't be, but within your CRA only. And they only deal with the funding and benefits from within your CRA. You cannot force somebody else to be a socialist. The parent sector boards deal with the five-year transition period. So the transition period is going to be important. Dealing with the debt and ownership of current government assets, how it's going to be transitioned to the free enterprise system. I have a full system on that. We're going to have videos on and the discussion on the current Constitution. I love the current U.S. Constitution, but we're not abiding by it. Well over 80% of the budget is not constitutional. Well over 90% of the regulations is not constitutional. The public education system violates the First Amendment significantly. It's not even close. That's not even allowed to happen. And quite frankly, this Constitution does so much better on representation and a lot of different things. I'll go into the current Constitution more and my love for it, but it's not as good as this one. This one is the next generation of better liberty. We'll go into statism. We'll go into how teenagers gradually get their responsibilities. We'll talk about how the Constitution is structural in nature. We'll talk about the transition. We'll talk about my general thoughts on the whole Constitution. There's a lot to go over on that. Again, it's huge. Huge change. Changing the foundations of government. We'll talk about how representation. I can talk forever on just how representation is so much better within the system. Where the authority lies from the state to the federal to the individual to the CRA to the sector board. We're going to get into all that. The political plans to pass this. What's the political plans to pass it? Anyway, 23 minutes into this video. Just a real quick overview. You read it at Haley2024.org. It's really easy to find. Please consider a donation to the Haley 2024, the movement. There's a donation page on my thing. And until the next video.